Hello and welcome to Future Procurement. My name is Robert Freeman, and today I'm really excited because we have a really special guest, at least for me, and I'm sure that many of you listeners were waiting for this episode to happen and you were asking me for inviting this guest. It's Dawn Tiura together with us. Hello, Dawn.
Hello, how are you?
Great. And for those of you who might have a question now, who is Dawn Tiura? She is a CEO and president of Sourcing Industry Group, or how I used to always say SIG.
Robert, that's perfect. So we go by SIG or Sourcing Industry Group.
Exactly. I like more how you present yourself on LinkedIn. You say that you're a passionate leader of the network for sourcing executives. And I think this is how many people, at least in our area, know you. And it's great to have you with us. Let me ask you about a short introduction about yourself and some of the background, because I know that there is a quite big experience and wide experience also. Can you share with us your way until today?
Sure. So I started out thinking I wanted to be a CPA. So I went to school, got an undergrad in business from the University of Michigan, and then went on and got a master's in international taxation. And for about 10 years, I was practicing in the Silicon Valley area. Back before Silicon Valley was really so hot as it is today, of course. And I did taxation for some companies like Electronic Arts was one of my clients before they went public. I worked with lots of startups. I worked with both the Hewlett and Packard families, and I had some really exciting clients back then in the Bay Area. And I did that for about 10 years. And then in my 10th year, one of my clients was an organizational development consulting firm who had just got into strategic sourcing. And they were doing a project at Kaiser Permanente, which is a large healthcare system out of California. And they said, we know we're driving a tremendous amount of value, but we can't quantify all of it. Could you come in and help us figure this out? And so I went in, and this is back in, 1992, and built one of the very first total cost of ownership cost models, TCO, for sourcing. And I fell in love with sourcing. And I thought, wow, being a CPA is great, but I missed the last 10 Easters because you work, regardless of when Easter is, and I'm working 80 hours a week, and I had 2 young children. I thought I might try something different. So I sold my CPA firm and I went to work for them as a consultant for 3 years and loved it, but realized I don't make a really good employee. I like to do things my way. So decided to launch my own firm, and it was called Denali Consulting, a Denali Group, in 1996, and then grew that. Then we started Denali Sourcing Services, Denali Recruiting and Staffing, Denali Intelligence, and I did that for the next 12 years. And during that time, I had the opportunity to speak at SIG every spring and every fall as a provider, a consultant in the space. And ironically, I said to Barry Wiegler, the original founder, one day, I said, Barry, I want to grow up and be you. And he said, what does that mean? I said, you're living the dream. You get to network with people and push the industry forward. So fast forward 5 years from the time I dropped that wish in front of him, he called me up and said, are you ready to grow up and be me? And I started to laugh. I said, what exactly do you mean? He said, are you ready for a career change? I want to retire. Which he didn't, which is another story. I want to retire, and I want to see if you want to take over at SIG. And it was perfect timing for me. It was amazing. So I was so tired of consulting and being on the road every week, and just the stress of always filling your pipeline. And I thought, oh my God, this is a dream come true. So I sold all of my shares in Denali Consulting to my partners. And in 2007, November 1st, 2007, I had the opportunity to take over for Barry Wiegler as president and CEO. And so for the last 10 years, I truly am living the dream. Every day I wake up, I talk to fascinating people. Our industry is changing so fast that, it's like drinking from a fire hose every single day. So you never get bored. And I love it. So I am actually living my dream. And so it's my third career, but they all built on each other. Of course, with sourcing consulting, for 12 years, it's really beneficial because I really understand sourcing. I understand the language. I've worked with multiple procurement organizations around the world. So it really set me up for success at SIG. And now SIG is just continuing to grow. And yeah, I get to live my dream. Not many people get to say that.
Fantastic. And a really, really interesting and inspiring story as well. And this only encourages me and hopefully also our listeners to dream and dream big, and hopefully dreams come true.
Yeah, and I really believe putting your wish out there in the universe, just letting people know that you're open to something truly unique and different, it really does help. You never know where it's going to come from, but there's a magic karma to me that happens when you put it out there. And one day, someone might remember that dream and have the perfect opportunity for you. So that's something I truly believe in. Thinking big, putting it out there, and letting the world respond to you. Interesting.
And maybe a little bit naive question, but living the dream you said about, in my imagination, SIG is really big company, and I'm just super curious to know, maybe in a glance, how would your typical day look like, and what sort of questions are you solving as CEO and president of Sourcing Industry Group? As I say, without going maybe into the secret details or something like this, but just to paint a general picture.
So no 2 days are the same. So they vary from working on curriculum for SIG University to doing my own podcasts. But a lot of what I do is reading, research, and exploration. So I feel one of SIG's jobs, and particularly mine, is to always be looking out in the future to what the next wave of technology or advances are coming toward us. And then, I think we need to make our members slightly uncomfortable. We started talking about RPA about 5 years ago. We started talking about AI 5 years ago when people were saying, oh, it's 10 years out. It's like, no, it's coming fast. So the last thing I want is one of our members to be asked by their CEO, like, hey, what do you think of AI? And they go, what's AI? How does it apply to me? So I think it's our job to prepare people for the advancements. And the only way we're ever going to be seen as strategic, across most organizations, is by raising and elevating the industry as a whole to think more strategically, to project strategically. And so our job, and mine in particular, is to always be researching, looking for trends, looking for what else is on the cusp, and then finding people to bring it to our members to make it real. So that's really my role in life, is to constantly be learning and then sharing that and inspiring other people to feel safe enough to move forward into some of these new technologies.
Interesting. And this is actually how I connected to you, and I really expressed the interest to some of the projects that I have seen online, which were taking part in SIG Innovation Accelerator. And this maybe we can park for a while, and we will for sure come back to it, because I'm super curious about it. But maybe to start with SIG in more, let's say, general level, can you explain to those of our listeners who don't know what SIG is, and how can they benefit from SIG, or how can they partly contribute maybe to developing the community you were mentioning before? Can you explain in general terms what is SIG?
So SIG is the world's largest global sourcing association, and we focus on both strategic sourcing and outsourcing. And I don't want people to think of SIG as an event company. Yes, we do events, but our underlying purpose is for professional networking and best practice, and what we like to call next practice sharing. And so for us, the more people we can connect to brainstorm, to look for problems, solve problems, find solutions, the stronger our industry will be. So there's lots of ways people can contribute and gain knowledge. They can get educated through SIG University, and we have the foremost certification program that's modern today. It addresses all the things like we're talking about around technology. It addresses the hard skills, the soft skills, and the vested sourcing skills that you need to be professional and to have a common language of sourcing. And so it's super cool. Like, we have companies now that have bought into the idea of having a global language of sourcing, and every new person that they hire, regardless of what country they're in, if they're in the procurement organization, they go through SIGU, regardless of their title and the number of years, and they want to have a common language throughout their company. So like MUFG Bank, they do a private cohort, and they're the second largest bank in Japan, and they have people in Israel, London, Boston, Santa Fe, I mean, you name it, and they'll do a private cohort every semester and put 25 people through. And so they have a common language throughout their company. So when they say X, it means X to the other person, not Y or Z. And so that's really exciting. And Honda, PwC, ADP, all of these companies are putting their entire procurement organization through the Certified Sourcing Professional. And they said it's elevating them and their notoriety within their company and their success rates. And then conversely, providers are starting to take the coursework because they're the ones that are being sourced, and they don't know why they win and why they lose because they didn't understand the language of sourcing either, and they didn't understand the intent of questions in RFPs. Now they know what we do with the information we request. And so they're saying that their closing rate on RFPs is being escalated as a result of taking the coursework. So that's one way people can experience SIG. But also the SIG Resource Center, we have over 5,000 tools, templates, methodologies available for you in native format. So PowerPoint, Excel, Word, go in, download it, put it in your own company format, make it even better, send it back to us, we'll cleanse it and upload a new copy of it. So our members, it was all created by our members. All 5,000 documents were contributed by our members. And so it's a great way for people to give back. If they have just a great tool that they created, or a great template, get it into SIG and share it with your colleagues. And you can either do it privately and unbranded, which most of the buy-side participants have to do, or if you are a provider or a sell-side advisor, consultant, lawyer, they like to brand it because if you see it and you're impressed, there's a good chance you might call them up and say, hey, I watched this, or I used your template and it was great, or I have some questions about some terms and conditions that you contributed, and it starts a conversation. So 2 ways. So people can either take from us or they can give to us. And we like both kinds. The ones who take, we hope that we're educating and incentivizing. And the ones who contribute are people that believe in elevating the industry. So I welcome anybody who has something really cool to share with us, to share it with us. And if they can fill a gap that maybe we didn't even know existed, that's all the better for us. So lots of ways for people to get involved. And then we do our every Tuesday, every Thursday, we do a webinar, and that's so you can get educated at your desk. We do, I think we're about 24 CPO breakfast meetings that we do from 8 to 11. They're called Meet and Eats all over the country and into Canada and London. And then we do our signature daily events, and we have 38 of those a year. And then, of course, we have our 2 big global summits in the spring and the fall. So lots of ways to get involved. If you want to contribute to SIG University, we're building out risk, compliance, governance, and risk right now. Governance has been launched. Risk is now in the can, and we're just in production on it. And I'm building out compliance right now. But if you have something really cool, or you want to do a guest video and include it, a case study or something like that, call me up. We'd love to have guest speakers in SIG University bringing different case studies to all of our students. So lots of ways to get involved with SIG, and I welcome all of them.
Great, and that's exactly why I said in the beginning or introducing you, Dawn, was remembering or reminding myself this title, or not title, but this line that you have below your name, passionate leader of the network for sourcing executives, because everything you are describing now is about networking, is about leading the change, and about showing a good example, sharing, etc. So really, really interested, and it's far beyond only education that many procurement people are considering SIG as an education platform or certification, what you said, platform, but it's far beyond that. And this I can confirm, even with so little experience being with SIG in different events or also webinars. I confirm, really, really insightful. But there is far more than only education or certification.
Thank you.
If I will stop a little bit about certification programs and professional development programs that you were mentioning, correct me if I'm wrong, but in my mind, the biggest competitors you have is SIPS and ISM, as far as I can know. And maybe you can tell a little bit of a difference between you and them, if I can provoke you a little bit without maybe having any black PR or whatever, but just like telling the difference, because in my understanding, SIPS is trying to do something similar about certification, to have a unified terminology and certification systems all over the world. What is the similarities and differences between, for example, you and SIPS in these terms?
I would say that we don't see them as competitors. I think there's plenty of room in the world for all of us. I see them as a very different approach and much more traditional approach. It's sort of, something that my father would have participated in. And my feeling and the feedback we get from people that have participated in that and SIG is that they have not kept up with the times, that a lot of their education is very stale. They even told us at the last ISM conference that it had been years since they had updated their education, and they were going to be doing some overhaul of all of it. And so I think they do tremendous work. I think they've gotten, I think they got us on the map, but they don't get us too strategic. Neither of those organizations are about elevating the industry. And I see them as holding us back a little bit because they're still using materials from years ago and not pushing people into the future. So I think it's a really solid base. The other part too is, we don't focus on logistics, warehousing, distribution, cross-docking. We're not about the logistics side of the house. We're about all the front-end thinking, from the design aspect all the way through the source to pay, and not about the rest of the supply chain. So that makes us very different than ISM and SIPS. We're never going to have anyone talking about, putting barcodes on things in your warehouse. We'll be talking about the fact that your warehouse may get eliminated or be a much smaller building when you move to 3D printing. And so we'll be talking about it in a completely different way than they would be talking about it. So we're just different animals, and our intent and the reason to be here on Earth is totally different. I believe that I was put on this earth to elevate the sourcing industry, and that is my personal goal, is that by the time I retire, the CPO is going to have a capital C in front of their name, not a small c. And right now, in 98% of the companies, I would say we have a small c. And as a result, we're not equal to the CFO in most companies. It's the CEO and I'm a bean counter, so I can talk about the CFO. Yeah. It's a meteoric rise to stardom. They used to be, the bean counters. And now the CFO sits at the right hand of the CEO. And to me, we see stupidity, redundancy, we see mistakes, we see problems as it's happening in the field live. We can impact play as it's happening, not at budgeting and then at financial statements. By the time it's in a financial statement, it's already done. You can't correct it. You can put it in corrective behavior for the next quarter, perhaps, but you can't go back and fix it. If I'm in procurement, I can fix it right now. I can identify a problem as it's happening and fix it and save costs and bring in income and raise quality and service levels live on the field right now as the play is happening. And that's where I really think when people understand our broad view of the corporation, because really us and finance are the only two that look across the entire organization, we have such strategic view into the company. If we just could translate that to get a capital C, then I feel I will have done my job. When it's sitting there, so you've got the CFO on one hand and the CPO on the other hand, They'll be like, "Well, we did it." That's what my goal is that it'll be a capital C, it'll be paid like CFOs, it'll be respected like CFOs, and we'll have hundreds of thousands of people who want this as a career choice, and they recognize how cool. And we are the cool kids in the room. We have so much knowledge, and people just don't get that. And every day when you wake up and you read the news, it's that butterfly effect. Something that happened halfway around the world might impact you and your supply base. And so, we are sitting in such a cool area of work these days. It's beyond me why anyone would choose not to be in sourcing.
Interesting, Dawn. And maybe to build a little bit about on these phrases that you said about being cool kids, at the same time being sometimes a little bit too humble, maybe to stand for your position and to to start with a capital C, as you said. How can a procurement professional make a difference if he or she recognize themselves in the situation that you have just described? If some of our listeners right now listening to you says like, "Oh yes, that's me," how can this person make a difference starting from now listening to this episode? What can he or she do coming back at the office, and how can they make a difference?
I think the first thing they need to do, and I will say shame on you to a lot of people who don't, is they have to become fluent with the business plans of the business units that they are supporting. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people in sourcing and they're talking about reducing the price of something. And they're talking about capital dollars, and yet the business unit is looking so hard at reducing O&M, operating dollars. And they're two different kinds of dollars. They hit your balance sheet and your income statement completely different. But if I don't know the goals of the business units I'm supporting, I'm not going to be able to deliver to make them successful. We need to know what the business units want and need to be successful and then deliver to that for them. And so many people just don't listen. They don't take time to learn the business units, learn their language. You can't go into marketing and say, "I'm going to save you costs." What you can say is, "I have an idea how you can run so many more campaigns next year with no additional fees, because I can save money in some areas that we can reinvest into more campaigns." That will get their attention. Telling them that you're going to cut their budgets and save money, you're going to be kicked out. So understanding the business units that you support, to me, is so absolutely critical. And, once you start doing that, and then talking their talk the way they speak. They don't buy advertising, they buy branding, they buy social media recognition. They don't just buy, LinkedIn licenses or Twitter accounts. Everything is done for a reason. And so start talking the language of your business units. And then once you do that, they'll start paying attention to you. The more they pay attention, you'll be the ones that they go to. They'll come to you first instead of you finding out after the fact that something happened. And so that, to me, is the very first thing we could do, is really understand and talk the talk of our business units. That will get their respect. That will keep the doors open or open more doors for you. And then it will spread like wildfire around the company. But it's successful when you do it that way and you speak their talk. So that would be one of the first things I'd recommend, the very first thing you could do.
I like it. I always say similar example about talking to CEO or also CFO, which you mentioned. It's about maybe not talking only about saving 0.5%, but increasing the profit with adequate number. I mean,
or shareholder return.
Exactly.
So translate it into what's important to them, and it's surprising how many more doors will open for you as a result.
I like it's translating into their language. I like the way you express it as well. Also, you said that for SIG you strive to get the same language all over the world among sourcing or procurement professionals, but also you should translate this language to the language of CFO or CEO or the person you are talking to. I like it.
Exactly.
Great, Dawn. And maybe then moving into the question which initially triggered my wish to write to you about this interview. Going into the question of SIG Innovation Accelerator, can you share with us what is it and how can people learn more about it?
Absolutely. So this is where I mentioned Barry Wiegler, semi-retired, but really didn't. So over the years, Barry has been investing in companies, and occasionally he'll call me up and say, can I get a couple CPOs to kick the tires around a company? And I'll give him CPOs. And then last year we were talking, and I was telling him about us doing the proof of concepts where we did live robotic process automation. We're doing live AI, with members as proof of concepts. And a light bulb went off, and he said, you know what? I come to you with asking, and you're trying to do the proof of concepts. What if I formed a separate company, completely separate from SIG, where I find the companies that have these cutting edge ideas, and I find out what is needed by interviewing. So he's interviewed, 35, 40 CPOs now, and find out where the holes are. Because as much as people like to say they have a full suite, they may have a full suite, but nobody has best in class in every single aspect of the suite. And find these other providers that are the cutting edge, new to our industry, and then work with SIG to find people who want to do the proof of concepts so we can accelerate their time to market. So Barry has this brilliant group of CIOs, angel investors, strategists, people who, a gentleman who runs the think tank and teaches at Harvard Business School. So just amazing group of executives to go out and find these companies, vet them, and then we use half a day at the summits to meet these new emerging companies. So 3 to 5 of them come in and talk about their solution set. In our last summit, we had 5 of them, and we had 56 different companies sign up on one of the 5 or multiples of the 5 to do proofs of concept with them because they're so excited about the solution that they're bringing. So that is a separate company that is close because obviously it has SIG in the name, but it's a SIG Innovation Accelerator, SIA, and it's looking. So if someone out there listening knows of a cutting edge, go to SIG Innovation or siginnova.com and put in a request to be reviewed, and Barry's team will get back to you. And maybe you'll be the one that will be in our next sort of Shark Tank experience with us. But it's a great way that, these companies can't get an audience of 50 or 60 CPOs at once. And we can bring them that audience. And, so we have programs around risk, around tail spend, which, is fraught with risk and has never been sourced. And there's a lot of dollars. We have supplier portals that give you a tremendous amount of market information. So all kinds of different companies that are in the SIA today, and they're looking to add 3 to 5 every 6 months to go through the acceleration if we can find good companies. And so I'm really excited. Barry, he couldn't retire, and he's so passionate about the industry, and it's exciting for me now to be able to work alongside of him in a separate company. So it's really cool stuff that we're doing there.
I like it, and I like the passion how you describe it. Can you please share with us, if it's possible, some of the successful and maybe also not so successful projects coming out from this acceleration, as you called it?
I can't share that right now because they just presented in March, and they're starting their proof of concepts right now. I do know that there's tremendous interest, so by fall we should have some success stories. But they're going through right now the really kicking the tires deeply. They'll bring 10, 15 people onto a webinar to really look at the technology. So I know we've got tremendous amount of interest, and we're introducing people every single day from the SIA, and each of them are going at their own pace of looking at it. And then they have a core team of anywhere from 15 to 20 companies that are looking at it together to brainstorm. And they're suggesting fixes, and they're suggesting some changes to the software organizations, but pretty soon you'll be hearing about a bunch of them because I know SIA is going to be starting to do a social hit on trying to get these companies out more broadly. Right now they've been announced in a press release, but they'll be doing a lot more to get more people on board to start accelerating them.
Interesting. And okay, maybe to give us a flavor, Future Procurement is the name for our podcast. So we are also, as SIG, future-oriented and thinking about the next big things in if we can call them the next big things for procurement, for sourcing. Can you share with us at least the areas where which are the most interesting or the most hot if we tell about SIG Innovation Accelerator?
I would say definitely artificial intelligence and using that for predictive analytics, using AI to crawl through your tail spend and identify risk. We're very risk focused these days because, especially in the tail, it's 80% of your suppliers and providers are in the tail spend, and yet we don't source it. So we don't know if we've got a cybersecurity issue in any of these. We don't know who the first and second and third tier providers are, and we're obligated to know them. So using AI to crawl through the tail and identify risk and source it at the same time is going to be huge, because it's something that you just don't put a strong sourcing person and tell them to go look at $10,000 contracts. But one of those $10,000 contracts might have been given access to some part of your system, and nobody's ever done a security check on it or a risk assessment on it. So by using AI, we're going to be able to identify risk, and that's going to be huge for companies. And they're going to find that they had backdoors, so many backdoors open that they had no idea existed. So we're hoping that that's going to close a lot of those loops. And then go through that spend and look at the other areas of sustainability. Look for the human trafficking. Look at the people that, wouldn't pass, a risk study if you actually took the time to do it on them, for so many reasons. And through AI and connecting networks, we can actually find out a lot about these suppliers and save a company from a very embarrassing public, as everything is public and everything is shared socially and shared widely. Nobody wants their name in the paper, for child trafficking or slavery in the supply chain. So that's the most exciting thing I see coming out of it right now. And then I'm excited about the future of robots. I think smart people don't want to do dumb, repetitive work, and a robot doesn't complain and doesn't mind it, and they do it better than us.
And it's not only about manufacturing, as I understand, or?
No, not at all. I mean, it's a time that it's like when we did a proof of concept with Honda. It was about onboarding someone. So think of the manual processes. You have to do. First, you have to vet the person through a background check. That's one system. Then you have to run it through People Ticker to make sure that the rates are appropriate. Then you have to issue the contract. Then you have to do the security clearance. Then you have to put them in the payrolling system for contractors. And then you have to onboard them and send them a uniform. That is manual. And it's open up this system, take this information, copy it to this system, close. Open this system, copy this information, close it. Go into this system, send an email, close it. It's so boring. And we did RPA where we were able to go in and out of 28 different systems. Oh no, it wasn't 28. It was 28 days worth of time we were able to condense. But I want to say it was like 7 or 8 different systems. And don't quote me because I'm wrong. I don't know what it was. But a numerous number of systems, and actually onboard the person without a human being touching it. No. And only the exceptions have to come out for a human being to look at. So think of what HR could be doing now that's smart and not boring.
More value-added processes. More creative. Nice.
Yeah. So that's another place that I think robots are going to tremendously help us and elevate us, because now we're not taking time to do all the tactical things, taking time to think and do the exciting work.
Fantastic. Dawn, one more area that I'm always curious during the last, 1 year or so, is about using blockchain in supply chain management or in procurement, smart contracts and things like that. Is there anything on the horizon that can really show up, something applied use of blockchain for procurement or supply chain management? Do you see any new projects?
I see a lot of value in blockchain. I see it definitely having a place in the future. What we're finding right now is that blockchain is hackable, and some of the best experts in the world, especially as computing power gets more and more powerful, they have to before people are going to put all of their contracts in or start exchanging money and closing contracts and do the procure to pay aspect of it, I think we need a little bit more time to test it. But I think the logic, and not all blockchains are equal either. And so that's one thing that I think people need to get educated on. That just because they say I'm a distributed ledger doesn't mean we're all created equally with the same, cyber security norms built into it. So I think it's about a year off from strong proof of concepts. I think for chain of custody, it's going to be fantastic for tracking assets. I see that immediately. That that's not something that would be hacked for as many reasons as it would closing a contract and getting paid. But custody of assets, I think, is a tremendous place for a company to be investigating it, and eventually contracts, and then ultimately, hopefully, payment. But I see payment as being last or a further out aspect of blockchain. Once we get past which blockchains are the ones we want to work with, which ones are most secure, and then give people time to try and hack them. We want to make sure they beat the heck out of them. Yep, I think they're coming. I think they're going to have a broad application and adoption. I just don't think it's going to be in the payment world as quickly as we'd like.
Interesting. So thank you also for this view on the future, a little bit showing behind the scenes. You said that you are not ready to share, but you said a little bit and gave us flavor. Thank you for that. And I know, respecting your time, you have a busy schedule that we need to wrap up soon. And closer to the end of our interview, maybe you can share some of the big ideas or some of the practical takeaways, as you wish, Dawn, for our procurement professionals from our community, future procurement community. What are the big things they should concentrate their efforts going forward?
John Scully is on our advisory board, and the first question John asked me when we met was, what do you read on a daily basis? And I thought I had a pretty impressive list, and it wasn't as impressive as his by any means. And what I learned is that, from that, I thought, what an interesting question. It's one of the things I ask in every interview now is, I want people that have insatiable curiosity around me. And if you don't read, get up and read. And if you don't follow the most interesting, intriguing people on Twitter, I didn't use Twitter to see what the Kardashians are doing. I don't care. I use Twitter to follow the brightest people I can find and find what they're reading and what they're posting. And that's where I'll start to see trends. And, and then I read, everything from the IBT, International Business Times to Washington Post to Fortune data sheets. I must have, 15 news sources that I at least scan every single day. And I think that's what people need, is that insatiable curiosity to see what's changing in the world and how that impact might affect them, and then start looking for those trends. And so Forbes, Economist, you name it. I just love every news source I can get out there. And then I can start sifting through it to see what's actually real and not. If it's repeated by really respected people and really good sources, it gets better and better all the time. So that's how I siphon my news, and that's what I would tell people to do, is get yourself to be incredibly insatiable about learning every single day and be curious.
Fantastic. And this is the reason why I follow also Dawn Tiura on LinkedIn, and this is the reason I'm also very, very much into activities of Sourcing Industry Group, or SIG. Fantastic. Thank you so much for these great words, inspiring words, and also some practical advice and some of the insights from the industry and from Sourcing Industry Group, or SIG.
You make it so easy. So you're great at doing this. So thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us until the very end of this interview. I really enjoyed to talk today to Dawn Tiura, who is the CEO and the president of Sourcing Industry Group, or SIG. I have left the links to the resources we mentioned today in the show notes, so you are very welcome to check out SIG and SIG Accelerator, which we were mentioning today. And I also have left the LinkedIn profile to Dawn Tiura, and I strongly encourage you to follow her on LinkedIn, because as she has mentioned, you should follow and you should really see what's trending now in your profession if you want to succeed, and invest enough of your time to network, to talk to people you like, to talk to people you see as good examples in the industry or in the profession, and of course the things that you observe and that the things that you are following are becoming who you are in there. And for those of you who want to contact us, as always, write us the email info@futureprocurement.net, or you can reach me with any of the social media. My name is Robert Freeman, and this was Future Procurement. We'll talk to you soon.